Hello, hello everyone. Jen here. Thank you for joining me today on our watercolor journey. Today we are going to work on a couple different things. One being our gradients. It's always fun to do that, and I feel like you can't ever practice it too much. And then also we're going to work on depth here, creating a dynamic piece that will provide some lavender in the background as well as the foreground, and how quick and easy it is, and just a way to get your art juices flowing. So I have just sprayed my hot press paper here, taken my square wash brush and just kind of wetted the paper. I want to make sure it's very wet because we're going to be doing these light washes in the background, starting with some blue for our sky. Can be any blue that you want. We're going to do purple lavenders, so if you wanted to be particular about your blue with that purple, go right on ahead. If you wanted to make some fun clouds in the sky, that would be beautiful too. We are going to move on to our centerpiece and doing some orange, yellow orange, or this here is cadmium yellow here in the middle, and you can even work it up into the blue. Orange and blue are very natural colors together. That's what a lot of the sky is, and they're complementary colors as well. So I think this cadmium yellow is a little on the orange side, so that's why I chose that. And then down here we're going to use some green, and this green is going to mimic our field. And I am going to keep it a very light yellow green as well, because I want it to pop out and not be too dark, because we're going to add a lot of darks and purples to the main piece. So I want to make sure that it doesn't get too dark. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more of a brighter green down here, just to kind of distinguish between the yellow and the blue. Okay, that's looking amazing. So while it's still wet, we're going to take a size 6 brush, a larger brush than what we're going to use for other detail work. And here we are going to create some beautiful lavender, very blurry. This is going to be in the background, so you just want it to be distinguishable as lavender, as well as we are going to do some lavender stems. So I'm just going to use a little bit of a darker green. I am just mixing what I have on my palette, little dab, and I am going to just make my lavender stems, some straight, some jutting off diagonally. And these are just meant to be very blurry, very wet, because they are in the background. So you can go as high up as you want, you can stay low. I like to have the lavender stems be very full toward the front, the bottom of the painting. And this is just our first layer. We are going to get more into the layers as we dry. This is our first out of 3. So now we are going to move on to the lavender, and I have different color purples here. I have a violet, I have a purple. You can mix blues and reds to make your own color of purple. You just kind of want to have just some different shades, you know, just to kind of create a little bit of dynamic nature scenes, because that's, you know, how nature works. No two lavender sprigs are the same. So here we are just giving lavender-esque vibes as far as shape and color. And you want this to be very diluted. These colors we are going to layer on darker, more pigmented colors as we do our layers. So just want this one to be noticeable in the background, but not necessarily stand out. You can have some kind of coming off the page where you just get half of it. This is where you can really be creative and just kind of let the piece speak to you, and just stand back and look. I'm going to try and do some bigger ones in toward the front because it's going to be more in the view that way, naturally. You can load this up as much as you want. Let's see here, we'll do a little one here. Okay, I think that's good for me for now. So I'm going to let this dry and then we'll come back and add another layer. Okay, we are going to move on to our second layer where our colors are going to be a little more pigmented. And here I'm going to start with our stems. And I'm just doing the same techniques. I'm crossing, I'm making sure that it's very full, lots of stems, all different sizes, shapes. We'll even get into some different greens here. But we want it just to be a little more dynamic, a little more pigmented. We're just working on the layers of the field that is the lavender. This is my size 3, and this one we will also use to make some lavender pieces, blooms. Now we're going to do the same thing, take a little bit more less wet, a little bit more pigmented purples. So, you know, if you have to mix in some more colors, that's fine. I just like to have different shades just to kind of, you know, darken the light, make a pop for the dark. And then I'm just going to pick some of these sprigs that we've made here. This one kind of stops right here, and so I'm just going to, actually, let me test my pigmentation to see. Yeah, I think that looks good. A little bit more water. Okay, so I'm going to start up a little bit. I'm going to make just kind of like a, you know, a little top notch, and then lavender kind of has these sections that curl up to me, and they don't really get bigger as they go down. And then I can take maybe some darker purple and just kind of tap it in. And if you wanted later, you can come in and add some green in between. And I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to move through the painting, pick some green pieces, align them, and make some lavender. If you wanted to use the same purple throughout this, that would be beautiful too. If you just wanted to concentrate on your flowers. Still not much detail, just working in shapes and colors. Still want to keep it light, so we are going to go darker. And I love the look of overlapping, so don't be hesitant to do that. I'm going to switch to my size 6 and do some larger, just like we did in the front here. Maybe a little overlapping. Beautiful. I'm going to do another one here, maybe a little shorter. And then I think I'm going to do one over here. Off to the side. Okay. Back to my size 3. This is very meditative as well, because you're just, thinking about placement, or you're not, and you're just moving along and doing the pattern, mixing your colors. I want this to be very full, but I don't want to overpower the painting straight away. So again, I'm just creating more lavender shapes and colors. Some of these might turn out to not be very visible, and that is okay. And when I looked at lavender, the one thing I noticed most was almost has these separations in between the petals of the bloom, and kind of creating these U-shaped sections. And so this is my interpretation of a lavender, but it's never a bad idea to do a study on something you're painting and trying to, come up with your own interpretation and paint it the way you see it. And so by creating a study, you are really focusing on that one item, whether it's cats, if you want to do, animal portraits, it's just focusing on the the structure of a cat or a dog, the face, just kind of like you work solely on the nose or, solely on the ears. And then you put it all together for your your final piece. And so that's always helpful to do. So again, I think I'm almost finished with making kind of my lighter pieces in the back. So you're now beginning to see the depth that we have here. So we have these in the background, which are, very blurry, but you know what they are. And then you have these lighter pieces in here that we are going to cover up more with darker pieces. So they're just going to kind of be peeking through. And then we have a medium-ish tone. We have probably 4 opacities that we're going to be working with. And so it just is already like coming off the page, and, we are just enjoying the process and working on getting to know our brushes, our paints, whatever it is for you today. Or this card I've already made multiple times, as gifts. And so you could be working on a nice, pretty piece for someone too. So it can be whatever you need it to be. So I'm thinking that's looking amazing, and don't really know if we need any more greenery. I think we're pretty well set. So I'm just gonna let this dry a little bit. I still have a couple here that are wet, and then I'm gonna come in with, some other darker, bolder colors, and then I will make those a little more prominent as far as here's the stem. You can tell that those are very much in the foreground. So we'll let this dry and we'll come back. All right, so our second layer is dry. And as you can see, there isn't much empty space here for us. So we are going to have to go on top, which I just think is so much more interesting. So don't be afraid to do that. I am often afraid of using dark colors, so we're gonna work on being brave together today. So I am going to start, I'm gonna use this stem right here for one of my pieces of lavender. And I have just mixed up a, darker version of my purples. This has a little bit of red and blue in it, along with some regular purple from my palette. And I'm just going to start to move through this piece with this darker color. And you know, when a lot of these are still wet, we can come through and add a little darker, some more tinted pops if you want, you know, deeper shades. A lot of times the color will dry really pretty like that with the blooms. So it's really just the aesthetic that you are looking for in your painting. So don't be afraid to go with that. And then I'm trying to keep in mind the rules of composition and my odd numbers, because we have all of these colors pretty much naturally go together really well. Blue and orange, purple and blue, greens. That's very pretty. Okay, I'm gonna try and do maybe a different shade of purple and see how that comes through. Maybe off to the side here. I'm gonna try, even though I have my size 3, I'm gonna try and make this one on the larger side. Kind of blue bonnet, you know, vibes sometimes, but I feel like all wildflowers have a vibe. That's turned out really nice. I like that a lot. So I'm actually going to try that with my size 6 up here in the front again. I think I'm going to do a slight large one here off the center so I get some of that one in the background while keeping the larger ones up front. And then just the top of one of these, like that. And move back to, I'm gonna hold it up a little for myself. It's really important when you're working, sitting down and looking over something, to give yourself a different directional viewpoint and kind of set it up. And that's why working on things like easels is important. And you know, if you can do that, even just like a desk easel, it helps a lot just to kind of change your perspective and to be able to even paint in a different way and to see things differently. So some of these, I'm going to close up some of these gaps and maybe try this purple. Even though this one's pretty deep, yeah, I didn't think much would pop there. Okay, so I'm thinking I want something right here, and then I think I will be finished. Maybe something a little darker here to balance it out. So let's see what we can work with. Let me start with another one over here. I'm going to have it somewhat coming off the page. There we go. And then on this side, we can do, let's just do one straight up right here. We will deepen that up with some darker purple. There we go. And then I have mixed up a little darker of a green, but it's still pretty yellow, pretty bright still. And I'm going to try on these darker ones, the ones that don't obviously have stems, to just kind of do that, move it through and make it very broken, very loose. If we have some bleeds, that is fine too. They don't have to go all the way to the bottom. Just to kind of help some of those stand out a little bit. And that's how easy it can be. We are finished. We have worked on so many techniques, gradients, a little bit of color theory, knowing which colors mix and do well together. We've worked on getting to know our brushes and our paints. And those are important things. And those are important, not just beginner learning things, but also important things for me to remember as I paint all the time. Isn't that beautiful? I just love that. I think it's so pretty. And this can be a Happy Easter card. I've used it for a birthday card. It's just, and it's different every time. Every time you paint it, it's gonna come out different. So I hope that this tutorial has inspired you to get out there and be creative, and don't be afraid to let your art flag fly. Make it a great day, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me. Bye, guys.